introduction. Welcome everybody, welcome to this new edition of the Hague Inter-University Law Debate Tournament. So this is the 6th edition that we start today with the very first match of the group phase. So as you can see, the teams are already here. We start with a match between two universities, one who already participated last year, the University of Bologna, and the University of the Republic in Uruguay, who participate for the first time to this competition. So today I'm joined by my colleague, Mr. Motui, so who will be helping actually in giving the speaking time. So my name is Ryan Orange, I'm in the Netherlands, and this is the day one of this the Hague Inter-University Law Debate Tournament 2023, and we'll start with this match today. So let's start immediately in giving the floor to actually the participants of this match. So I would like to ask each student to introduce himself or herself, and obviously afterwards we'll be starting with the positions and the debate itself. So Mr. Ignacio Michelini, could you maybe introduce yourself?
Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Ignacio Michelini, and I'm representing the University of the Uruguayan Republic.
Thank you very much. In which year of studies are you?
Sorry?
Which year of studies?
I'm in fourth year. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So now on the side of Bologna, Mr. Luis Felipe Alvarez Vega, could you introduce yourself?
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Luis Felipe Alvarez Vega, and I'm a master's student in the Legal Studies master's program of the University of Bologna. I am originally from Costa Rica, but I'm doing this master's here. I'm very excited to be a part of the tournament, and I hope we all have a great match.
Thank you very much. Now, Miss Maria Federica Sanz.
I'm Maria Federica, and I'm also representing the University of the Republic. I'm in third year of law school.
Thank you, welcome. And now, Miss Maria Gabriele Paiva Barbosa.
Hello, my name is Maria Gabriele Paiva Barbosa. I'm originally from Brazil. I'm a former graduate in European Law by Maastricht University, and currently I'm pursuing a master's degree in legal studies at the University of Bologna. I'm very eager to debate on this topic with you guys today.
Thank you very much. And as well, the third representative student from Bologna, Miss Emma Berthaud, could you introduce yourself?
Hello everybody, my name is Emma Berthaud. I'm a first year master student in Bologna in legal studies. I come from France, I have also legal background, and best of luck to you.
Thank you very much. And we have as well a former participant, Miss Malika Ite, if you want to introduce yourself as a coach, because you participated last year.
Hello everyone, my name is Yeva, I'm originally from Lithuania. I'm also a master's student at the University of Bologna, and yes, I participated in this competition last year, and it was very great.
Thank you very much. And I think we have as well another coach or judge, Miss Candelaria Rodriguez Alonso. I don't know if you can hear us.
Yeah, hi, good morning everyone. I'm Candelaria, and I'm representing the University of the Republic. I'm studying international relations at law school.
Thank you very much. So, you received last week a topic, which actually is your first debate statement for this competition. Both of you received it 7 days ago. That was non-adherence to international agreements to combat climate change, such as the Paris Climate Agreement, by signatory state should be penalized by trade sanctions. So that was the topic. Obviously, you had to prepare both sides in favor and against. And today you will know which position you will get. So what I will do is that I will share my screen, and then you will see the allocation of the positions live, and then of course you'll be able to prepare for 5 minutes based on that that position. Up. So normally you should see the wheel with the 2 positions for each university. So it means in favor for the University of the Republic, against for the University of the Republic, in favor as well for the University of Bologna, and against for the University of Bologna. So now I will just click and you will know which position you will have for this match. So for this match, this is University of the Republic in Uruguay, who will be starting in favor. So it means the University of Bologna will be against. It means simply that for this debate, yes, the University of Uruguay will defend that non-adherence to international agreements to combat climate change, such as the Paris Climate Agreement by signatory states, should be penalized by trade sanctions. And on the other side, the University of Bologna will have to defend the position that non-adherence to international agreements to combat climate change, such as Paris Climate Agreement by signatory state, should not be penalized by trade sanctions. So you will have now 5 minutes to prepare. You can close your camera and your audio, and in 5 minutes we'll be starting the match. So, we will be starting the match. First of all, I want to remind you that, will be the timekeeping as well. So when you see the yellow card, it means you still have 30 seconds until the end of your speaking time. When you see the red card, it means that, yes, the time is over, and if you go over time, the judge might penalize you. So now, I will give the floor to my colleague, Mr. Mutui.
The time is up, and I would like to invite the University of the Republic to give their opening statement. You have 4 minutes.
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. It is an honor to be here. Before we start presenting our arguments, we would like to say that our position will be based on academic evidence. Since the scientific community alerted humankind the plausible effects of climate change, the international actors have assumed the challenge to combat this crisis. Despite the fact that several countries have joined their efforts in order to tackle the issue at hand, results still remain insufficient. One of the biggest threats that threaten the progress achieved is the lack of adherence of signatory countries. In order to reverse the lack of compliance, economic sanctions present to be not only effective solutions, but also they are one of the least violent means of sanctions, as sanctions only try to reinforce the commitment towards a norm. So defending the principles established in Article 26 of the Vienna Convention, the one that highlights that pacts are made to be kept, and also recognizing signatures as an expression of consent, it would be really unrealistic to expect that the international community won't react to a violation of its treaties. This way, on the other hand, we must keep into consideration that economic sanctions are not new to the international community. We have seen them recently applied to the case of Russia and the war with Ukraine. The basis of these sanctions can be found on Chapter 7 of the UN Charter, more specifically Article 41, the one that gives competence to the Security Council to implement sanctions. And although this article doesn't delimitate under which circumstances these sanctions might be applied, we believe that the same way that they are used to preserve peace for bellic issues, they also must be used to resolve this crisis, as it has taken dramatical dimensions, a point in which my partner will then deepen.
All right, thank you, Federica. And to further understand this point that we are trying to make here, let's just refer to a case that is the successful positive experience that Montreal Protocol has brought of 1987 to the history of international cooperation. According to Scott Barrett's work, Rethinking Climate Change Governance and its Relationship to the World Trade System, the Montreal Protocol of 1987 is kind of a milestone in the history of international cooperation. What this author states is that the key reason for the success of this protocol are the trade sanctions that are contained in it, such as abandoned trade in controlled substances between parties and non-parties. So, to understand why trade sanctions have been effective in this protocol, we must point out that these trade sanctions were never actually imposed, but moreover, we have to refer to the experience with Kyoto Protocol. Kyoto Protocol that follows the regulation of Montreal Protocol regulates and controls emissions of greenhouse gases that are not controlled by Montreal Protocol. So the question we made ourselves is the following: why is the reason for these greenhouse gases and emissions are not controlled by the Kyoto Protocol if they were already controlled by Montreal Protocol? The answer to this question is very simple. They were already being controlled successfully by the Montreal Protocol, and that is enough evidence to support the position we are defending, and that's why trade sanctions should be included in international agreements to enforce the compliance.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now I will call the presentee for their opening statements. You have
just a little point. Just for the University of Uruguay, be aware that is one speaker per position. It's just for you to be aware of it. So, yes, my colleague, you can proceed.
Then you have the floor. You have 4 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, honorable panel and opposing council, good evening. There is global consensus that CO2 emissions resulting from the combustion of fossil fuels constitute the greatest known contributor to climate change. Today, pollution by greenhouse gases is at an all-time high. Unless the situation is reversed, global warming will make this planet inhospitable. Gladly, there are indicators that governments around the globe are finally waking up to the huge threats posed by climate change. The Paris Agreement is a landmark international accord that was adopted by nearly every nation in 2015 to address climate change and its negative impacts. The agreement includes binding quotas, so-called nationally determined contributions, or NDCs, from all major emitting countries to cut their emissions. On the 1st of July of 2021, in the Climate Fund case, the Brazilian Supreme Court held that treaties on environmental law, including the Paris Agreement, are attached.
Yes. Pause.
By stressing its supranational character, the court ruled that any Brazilian law that contradicts the Paris Agreement, including the NDC, may be invalidated. However, not every state stands by their commitment so fiercely. So should non-adherence to international agreements in climate change be penalized by trade sanctions? We hereby submit that non-adherence should not be penalized by trade sanctions. Firstly, trade sanctions seem largely ineffective in influencing state action, in particularly of the most powerful states. The vast literature has consistently pointed out at the inexistence of conclusive evidence that economic sanctions are an effective policy instrument. After Russia initially invaded Ukraine in February 2014, the United States imposed a series of sanctions designed to punish and weaken the Russian economy through restrictions on trade and finance. However, these sanctions failed to deter further aggression, and we're now witnessing a worsening conflict. Not only are trade sanctions potentially ineffective in achieving their intended goals, but they also carry unintended consequences that harm ordinary citizens. For instance, the economic sanctions imposed on Iran from 1990 to 2003 by the United Nations has been heavily criticized for causing widespread suffering among the Iraqi people instead. Secondly, there is an issue of asymmetric responsibility. Historically, developed countries have emitted more greenhouse gases and were thus able to freely grow their economies. Data shows that most developed countries are the biggest vessels of climate change. Indeed, the US ranks at top 1 of the list of largest emitters in the globe of all time, followed by the European Union. Now that consequences have hit, some should be paying more than others. There is also an asymmetric economic burden that sanctions impose in relation to non-developed countries. Penalizing them with trade sanctions is unfair and impedes their economic development. Esteemed panel, it is important to reflect upon this. What is the final achievement of trade sanctions in relation to environmental reparation? If unable to achieve treaty compliance, then it's nothing but punitive. In fact, trade sanctions may even deter third countries from embarking in environmental agreements, fearing economic repercussions. In a world where cooperation is a condition sine qua non in the fight against climate change, it is vital to maintain international peace and stability. For this, trade sanctions are short-sighted and incur unintended effects. Instead, a polluter pays principle approach combining with awarding compliance rather than punishing non-adherence is favored. We thus stand that non-adherence to international agreements in climate change should not be penalized by trade sanctions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will now call the University of the Republic for their first rebuttal. You have 2 minutes.
Thanks. With all due respect, my colleague and I would like to know which are the countries that are advancing in this green trade, because as we can see, the consequences of climate change have increased dramatically, and there has not been such a different scene in the situation. Also, here our mate says that, well, the private sectors should take another step in this problem, but however, isn't it the public international law responsibility to take care of this issue? I mean, although we see the point that a lot of the least developed countries are suffering a lot from these sanctions, we believe that the international community should focus on the global security rather than particular. And also, at the end of the day, we will be saving these economies, because a lot of these economies are profiting from their landscapes, and by saving and, let's say, by implementing measures that protect the environment, they can, in long term, they will be benefited, because then with a more controlled use, they could expand their economy in the future. But if they start, let's say, deteriorating their ecosystem, and now things in the future won't turn out good for them either. And also, it is illogical to believe that economic sanctions will cause poverty. I mean, it has to be a country that transgress a lot the international law. Thank you.
Thank you. Now it's the turn of the University of Bologna for the first rebuttal. You have 2 minutes. Sorry, your mic is...
I'm sorry, I apologize for the microphone. So regarding the issue about the efficiency, we must say that suffers of a fallacy of appeal to tradition, ignoring the possibility of finding more efficient solutions. Yes, economic sanctions have worked in the future, but that doesn't mean that they will work for this particular topic. Particularly, like the economic sanctions are known to have impacts on the environment of a given country, and also on human rights on that given country that is suffering the sanctions. So in that case, that would be counterintuitive to the spirit of international environment law, as a more intensive exploitation of their own country's environment would go against the idea of the treaty. So it ends up being a counterintuitive method for dealing with the issue. What countries are advancing in green trade? The European Union is implementing a number of treaties and mechanisms to implement green trade. For one example could be the use of eco-labels in some products that you can see to identify which products are compliant with environmental law. Also, we find it very important to address the fact that as the other team said, trade sanctions are not the least violent means of punishment, as they have adverse effects on countries, and they end up suffering, their own country that is being punished and suffering from human rights violations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll now call on the University of the Republic for the second rebuttal. You have 2 minutes.
All right, thank you. With all due respect for the counterpart, we're back to the fact and the arguments that they just already presented. We would like to ask them a question on which alternative is better to achieve climate change goals, because we do not see and we consider that there's not enough evidence to support the position that they are defending, in order that the alternatives of trade sanctions in order to achieve climate change goals there are enough, because we do not realize an effective or a paradigm shift in the models of production of the biggest companies in the world, or in the trade models that are dominating right now. And on the other hand, we consider that this is a matter of international security. And now the question is, why, if we impose trade sanctions on those countries that violate human rights conventions, why don't do it with them violating what for the UN is the right to develop that every country has? In this sense, we consider that trade sanctions should be imposed, because there's enough right and law argument in order to achieve these goals through trade sanctions, because are the best tool, and as my colleague Maria Federica said, they are the least violent means of combating climate change. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, University of Bologna, it's your second rebuttal. You have 2 minutes.
Yes, so an answer to the question posed by the other team, an alternative solution would be to creating a scheme of incentives in the structure of the international treaties. So that way we can give, like, for example, a scaled incentive to countries to reach certain goals in which they would be rewarded for reaching certain goals. And they could also be rewarded for continued protection of the environment. That is a scheme that would be innovative for the case of international law, but it would be less intensive, and it would not be counterintuitive as in the case of trade sanctions. It is a matter of international security. We 100% agree with the other team. It's a matter, but it's also a matter of urgency and effectiveness. We cannot only go against countries that are not complying with international trade environmental law. We also have to go against the biggest polluters. So the biggest polluters would also be the countries that are more resilient to international trade sanctions. So it ends up being, again, an ineffective tool to deal with the issue. Finally, another issue I would like to raise is that the threat of future sanctions will keep countries from making ambitious commitments, and that is exactly what we need at this time of uncertainty and at this time of urgency. So in the spirit and in order to be able to reach the goals of the international environmental law, we need to find another more innovative solution. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now I will give the floor to the University of the Republic. You have 2 minutes.
To conclude with, in this debate we have seen that the consequences of climate change have spread rapidly. In order to solve this problem, that is an intergenerational problem, which free of consequences expands throughout inaction and decisions made based on particular interests rather than global security, we believe that economic sanctions are an effective solution. What is not an effective solution is to remain passive towards this problematic. By applying economic sanctions, we will be choosing environment towards than economy. And at the same time, it will be rentable, because in long term, the protection of our landscapes will bring us an enormous richness. The environmental crisis has gained its place over the international law community. We have seen this in several instruments, such as the Kyoto Protocol, the Paris Agreement, the Sustainable Development Goals, that are part of the 2030 agenda. And as we have said, this problem has become a matter of international security. And now what we need is to maintain an international community united but firm. In this case, this is why we believe that economic sanctions are key elements. Of course, that maybe they must, a lot of interest might be put against, but however, we believe that at the end of the day, this will benefit all humankind at the same time. Also because the environmental issue has brought another phenomenon such as the climate crisis and food shortage. By not doing nothing, we are in danger to reach a point of no return. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I will now give the floor to the University of Bologna for the conclusion. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable panel, opposing team, in this debate, the team argued that the trade sanction should be imposed in case of non-adherence to international treaties combating climate change. However, we explained that even though those trade sanctions might look less violent, in fact, we have example that shows the dramatic consequence that had to be expected from that, such as the Russian case. Our position, on the other hand, is that signatory states should not be penalized by trade sanctions. To support this, we laid emphasis on ineffectiveness, insufficiency, and asymmetrical burden and responsibility related to the trade sanction. We recognize the emergency to tackle climate change issues and that states should respect those international agreements and should also undertake ambitious action in that sense. However, we argue that the risks here exceed the potential benefits. This approach can be unfair to developing countries, can eventually penalize the penalizer and the citizen, and especially the most vulnerable ones, as we've seen with the Russian case and now the crisis with energy and gas. We truly don't believe that a trade war would have any positive impact neither on the climate itself nor on the adherence to the treaties. Furthermore, if the international community wants to adopt a more punitive approach, which goes against the spirit of the Paris Agreement, other options are available. Non-solely economic sanctions exist, such as travel restriction or cultural sanctions. Thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you very much. And this ends today's debate. Thank you for participating. I hope you enjoyed it a lot. Now we will go over the participants and like to have some feedbacks. What do you think about the debate and overall of the competition? So we'll start with the University of the Republic.
Well, I want to say that it has been a real pleasure to inaugurate this tournament and to participate. It has been an honor. So thank you to everyone that is in this meeting and this debate.
Yes, it has been a really good honor.
From the University of Bologna, maybe the feedback. Ms. Barbosa?
I found the debate very good. There were some arguments that we weren't previously expecting from the other team, and I found that very nice. It was a pleasure to be here with the Uruguayan team, and I hope to be seeing you guys in the future of the competition.
Mr. Luis Felipe Alvarez Vega?
Yes, hello. So yes, it was great to be able to participate with another team that was so prepared. I did appreciate, in fact, that you had some new arguments that we had not considered, so we had to like come up with some rebuttals on time. But I really appreciate the work of everyone involved. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Berthoud?
So yeah, it was a pleasure. I think we're all very excited to finally get started after the week of preparation, and I'm very happy with the result. Everybody had a good point. Everybody find a way to defend the position, and I'm very looking forward for the next games.
And last but not least, perhaps the coaches have a word. What did you think?
Miss Maikaite?
I really enjoyed the debate. I think that both teams were really strong and gave good arguments and were really passionate about the topic, so it was really, really interesting to listen. So great job, everyone.
Thank you. And Miss Candelaria?
Yeah, it was a pleasure to represent the university. So thank you for this amazing opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, yes, this concludes the very first match. Many thanks, Mr. Moutu, as well, for chairing this match. So, it means the two teams have started the competition. They will have, of course, in 2 weeks, another match. So, this is actually the end of this match. So, the judge are watching maybe the match or will be watching during the next 2 days, particularly in order to assess the performance of both teams. So what will happen, obviously, is that both teams will receive the result by mail with the points and as well as the feedback in the grading sheet that we'll be sharing with the teams after this match. So many thanks to everybody, many thanks in Italy, many thanks in Uruguay, and it was very nice actually to start with both of you. And of course, don't hesitate to watch the match of the other teams who you might have actually to compete with during the next weeks. So thank you again, and we keep in touch, of course.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
you.
Bye.